He has a journalism degree from Ryerson University in Toronto. He is the author of this French book that I'm going to really jack up here. Cour de bois. See, I rolled the back of my tongue like a German person instead of a French one, but hey, I tried. Uh, um, literary fiction is what that one is. He's worked in Canada, the United States, and Europe as a technical writer, editor, and designer in the fields of software and telecommunications. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. In 2014, he moved to the province of Limon, Costa Rica, where he lives on a small farm in, how do you say that, Talamanca Mountains with his wife
Correct.
Rosemary. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Talamanca Mountains.
In the French.
Yeah. Not bad. Bruce McDonald, welcome into the microcosm, and I'm so happy that you're here. You've finally gotten here, and I would really like to introduce you to the Aftermath staff and the Aftermath audience because they haven't really had a chance to hear much about you over here. So I thought it would be great to have you stop on by because I know that you've got a bunch of you have books out there that people will definitely be interested in, and you have something coming out soon that's going to be on the tip of everyone's tongue, I'm sure, across the planet once it actually hits the availability marketplace where it can be found. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing, and then we'll just get right into getting into the story about what's happening. So I think Danny may have some questions for you, but I just want to say, you want to just let people know where they can find your books, number one, and just go ahead and list them out for everyone, because I'm sure they'll roll off your tongue a lot smoother since you speak more than one language. Go ahead. More than two.
Yeah, well, first let me say thanks for this wonderful opportunity to be on Clyde's platform. I've been a fan of Clyde's for a long time. Aftermath is a brilliant reincarnation. And glad to see you found your place in it too. You're going to rock and roll, man.
Yeah, man.
So, basically I've been a struggling writer my whole life. Most of us, unless you write Harry Potter or Game of Thrones, you're going to have so as my bio indicates, I got a journalism degree. I graduated in 92. And then I really went hard at fiction for a number of years, wrote a few manuscripts. One got published and optioned for film in Canada. I spent a year doing a screenplay with a crazy Quebec French producer and a crazy Quebec French director who hated each other. It was like Hollywood micro there. And then I moved over here to Costa Rica, where I continue to work in software and telecommunication remotely, picking up contracts as a technical writer. And I shift gears from this lifelong ambition to be a literary author and maybe even a poet to nonfiction and creative nonfiction co-writes. I just thought, well, Bruce, you've tried your best telling your stories. Why don't you take all of this you've learned about writing and telling stories and find some great stories? And so that's what I've been doing for the last few years. I did this co-write with John in 2019 about Stardust Ranch, which is a ranch in Arizona that is highly unusual, to say the very, very least. And was a pleasure to write. It was a pleasure to get to know John Edmonds. And yes, I am finishing up another book now. And maybe we can talk about that towards the end of the show. I just want to kind of put the spotlight on Stardust Ranch now. For those of your listeners who watch Skinwalker Ranch on the History Channel, this is a very, very, very similar story, different but the same. And I'll stop there.
Hey, Danny, did you have any questions for Bruce? And Epic, did you have any questions for Bruce? Danny, go ahead.
Well, yeah. I know you had a break in between writing, and could you explain what it was like, personally, writing that book?
Yeah, I took two stabs at Stardust. John was introduced to me by a mutual friend who was interested in doing a documentary film on Stardust Ranch. This was in 2012, and at that point, I had not written any creative nonfiction, but I've always been interested in the paranormal. So I met John through the mutual friend, and I agreed to work on the book. And then we worked on it for about, I don't know, about 6 months, got about 120 pages done. Then I quit. I don't know how to explain why I quit, but there was a number of factors. Some of them, my memory will be jarred as we, go through the book and the show and stuff. But it was just an extremely creepy feeling the first time I went through the book.
So did you have like negative experiences that made you, question writing it?
Nothing that I could really objectify,
Okay.
nothing, but it was just, the feeling I had inside me. It was just like a darkness,
Yeah.
the material was really, really getting to me. I had never been exposed to this kind of material before.
The word
And
heaviness kept coming in my head. I was going to ask you if it was like a heaviness, a heavy feeling.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question now. Is it like actors? Because a lot of actors that are method actors, what they do is they put themselves emotionally and mentally in a position to feel the character and have this come out of them. Was it the same for you as far as writing and going over the material and reading it over and over again? Did it sort of like ingrain itself into you? Did you feel sort of this the energy of the material and what was going on starting to invade your own psyche and your own personal space at all?
I did in 2012. Now, what happened was, a number of years went by, and John and I stayed loosely in touch, maybe an email a year. And I moved to a very remote place, beautiful place, one of the most biodiverse 1,000 square kilometers in the world, a UNESCO heritage site in Costa Rica called the Talamanca Mountains. And I live with campesinos, which is Spanish for peasant, and Quebecar natives. And I've never been happier. And my son and he came over with me when he finished high school, and we built these earth bag houses, and they're beautiful to live in.
It's a beautiful place, ladies and gentlemen. Bruce lives seriously in one of the most beautiful places in the most diverse places in the world, the Talamanca Mountains, and it's a heritage site, isn't it, Bruce? Isn't it protected?
Yes. Yeah, it is a UNESCO, United Nations Environmental Science Cultural Organization is what it is. Yes, it is the UNESCO heritage site. It's protected by the UN. It's really, really dense. Like small planes go down in there and they can never find them. And,
whenever I hear something is protected by them, I always wonder if there's something really special going on in that area that, people don't need to be looking at.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
100%.
there is, but I think there is. So what happened was I moved here and I started to have orbs showing up above my house. And my neighbors were taking pictures of them and saying, "Hey, man, do you know there's UFOs above your house?" Got me starting to think about John again. I called them. And the lifestyle I chose up here, I can get by on $600 a month. All my bills, internet, satellite TV, everything. Because I own my property outright. And I built in what's called a wild zone, so there's no property tax here. So I had all this time to think about writing again, and when the orbs started appearing above the house, I started thinking about John, because the last time I had experienced anything or consciously come into contact with anything like that was with John. I called him. I said, "Hey, I got some weird stuff going on here. I think it's time to finish that book." We started. Now, the funny thing is, we both looked for the first draft, the 120 pages, and we both couldn't find it. And being a technical writer, I am a fastidious backup guy.
Yeah.
I looked at all my cloud, man, it just disappeared. So we had to start from scratch. And that's how the book got started in, I guess, late spring, early summer of 2019.
All right, well, let's get this interview started. I'll go over to the green room and get John. This is Aftermath.fm. Bruce McDonald, John Edmonds, Stardust Ranch, Danny, Epic Journeyman, Jimmy Jean. You got us all here. You're here. We're going to shout you out in the chat in a bit. Aftermath FM. Let's get the ball rolling here. I'm going to go get John out of the green room. It's a Greg Kinbound. what happened at Stardust Ranch, ladies and gentlemen. You're about to find out.
That grows inside me has gotten me on a string that ties me to my fate, dictates me, that tries to compensate, yet makes me fall, and all my fear forsakes me. Pretty soon it's gonna overtake me. That's when secret meetings with you tonight. Secret meetings, my heart is beating for you tonight.
John Edmonds, are you there? I see you there somewhere.
I'm here.
There you are. How's it going, man? It's great to have you. John, Bruce, Danny, Epic Journeyman, welcome into the MicroCosm. Welcome to Aftermath.fm, and we're super excited to have you. Danny, say hello. I know you've been excited since last week in the thought of getting involved and having a conversation with John and Bruce. Why don't you just go ahead and jump in, Danny, and let's have some fun, talk about what happened up there. I know a lot of it's not fun, but we'll try to find some fun in it. Why don't you jump in, Danny? Go ahead. Oh, she's gone for a minute.
She said,
that figures. Right, Epic Journeyman, go ahead, jump in, say hello to John, and let's get the ball rolling.
Hey, John. Yeah, it's funny. Like I had to look up a little bit about Stardust Wrench, and I wasn't joking when I said earlier. I ended up in the wrong Stardust Wrench. I ended up at the one in Ely, Nevada, which is actually a brothel. Not the same one. Yeah. And I'm in VR, right? So like, I'm not on Google Earth and stuff. Sometimes looking at this stuff, it's like I don't think that's the place. But I found it. And actually, interestingly, I've spent a lot of time in Arizona, like a lot of time. I've been all over that state. And my biggest UFO experience was not far down the road. So I'm curious to hear your story because I have a absolute experience in the same vicinity.
Well, so Bruce, after now in retrospect, all of this time has gone by. What would be the first question you would ask John to get the ball rolling? Because there's so many interesting places to get into, and I just would really be great if you in retrospect could look back and think of a really powerful question to ask John to get the ball rolling.
Sure. So, when I engage the material, when I engage any material, when I'm working on a book, my first thought, and I think this is the first thought of every writer, I guess maybe experienced writers, it might not be around your first book, but it's structure. Like, how are we going to tell this story, right? Where does it begin? Where does it end? Is there a 3-act structure? Can we write this in a normal way? And so John and I, the way the book was written was John and I talked every day on Skype for hours. The conversations were recorded, transcribed, became the basis of chapters, and then we would kick the chapters back and forth, work on them, and then just move forward that way. It's a real extraction process, right? It all came out of thin air. And so, we spent about 6-7 months just, talking and writing chapters, and then it all started to come into focus. There was a little bit of research to do, and stuff like that. But obviously my first question is, how did you end up at that ranch? And when did you, first get there? And then just start from there. And, as the story unfolds, it just gets, weirder and weirder and weirder and weirder.
Wow.
It's just unbelievable. And I shouldn't say weird. That's the mindset when I wrote the book, and now I've digested it, and it's a part of me now, and it's not so weird. It's not so weird at all.
The material in the book actually added to your own spiritual journey in life, though, didn't it? This is when someone writes a book like this is not just, you're not just typing words on a page. You're actually experiencing what you're going through, right?
Yeah, a lot happened when I was working on the book, and just at the beginning of this call, I dropped right off just as we were about to go live. I haven't had any internet problems for months up here in the mountain. This was one of the characteristics of working with John. There's something about that ranch, electronic stuff goes really, really wonky.
Mm-hmm.
But while I was working on the book, I'd like to get John's opinion on this, but I felt that whatever is there was conscious of the book. And it came here to the mountain and it visited me. And a lot of weird stuff happened. I'll tell you the weirdest. Then my son was here. My wife was here. We all witnessed it, okay? There was this phenomenon inside the house where there was a smell. But smells move, right? So if there's a barbecue 100 meters down the road in your suburb, you might smell the barbecue, but the olfactory sense can locate where it's coming from, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a breeze and all of this was a smell that just sat in one area about 5 foot 10 inches high in the house, so you'd walk right through it. It was about the size of maybe a soccer ball. And the moment you were out of it, you couldn't smell it anymore. And I don't know how to describe the smell. It was like rubbing alcohol, blood, and copper. It was, and I did a little research later on after I finished the book, and that is a kind of organic portal opening up. There was one night the portal opened up. We all smelled it, me, my wife, and my son. It stayed open for a while. And I have a sofa here that I had custom built by a furniture maker in Costa Rica. It's really heavy.
Wow.
Lift. It pushed back about a foot with my son on it, who's about 190 pounds of solid muscle. He said, "Dad, we just had an earthquake. I'm 10 feet away with my feet up on the desk." I'm going, "What are you talking about? There's no earthquake." And the sofa literally moved about 12 inches. And so there's little stuff like this. And this didn't happen in 2012 and I was in Toronto at that time. I quit the book the first time. It was just feelings. But up here on the mountain, everything is just all. This is what was going on when I was writing the book. Yeah, it was really, I remember also from writing that book, really, really intense lucid dreams. This book was taking place physically as I was typing it and working. And it was taking place, I think, in the fourth dimension, and I was experiencing it on the dream level as well.
Well, that point that Danny made about those heritage sites and these special places, there may be a potentiality for this type of happening where you live, based on what's under the dirt there. Is there any type of crystal, or is there any type of mineral deposits that you know of in that area? And Danny, jump in here.
There's another synchronicity. Like, he and I had a short conversation earlier, and we were talking about just that in my area.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
Yeah, Kentucky has a big crystal plate under it, and they have goblins in Kentucky, for real. And I know this sounds crazy to some people, and 5 years ago I wouldn't have been saying these things out loud, but I've experienced them. Not goblins, but, I've experienced enough to be much more mobile in my lateral thinking about these things, But I understand, like, people who don't experience it, I understand why it's difficult for people to believe. I mean, I'm a completely rational guy, right? Journalism degree, all these. I mean, I need to be convinced of stuff, right? And yeah, this book was very tangible and very, very experiential for me. There was one morning, a Saturday morning, while working on this book, my wife and I woke up, and there was a ball of liquid light in the bedroom at the ceiling. My wife photographed it. I think you've seen the picture about a year ago, Jimmy.
Yeah.
John has seen the picture as well. And that happened while I was working on Stardust Ranch as well. Now, I found, whatever that was, I found it very warm and very protective. And all the negative energy went away, and I was able to finish the book.
John, how'd you end up at the ranch, John? Were you out looking for a place, you wanted to get off the grid or something, and how did you end up there, like Bruce asked you?
Well, basically what we wanted to do was to get out of Phoenix in general, just because Phoenix was becoming pretty intense in terms of, traffic, and just is super urban. Arizona has just gone through the roof as far as population growth, and It's really, really changed since I got here. I got here 84, and it was, nothing but orange trees and kind of like just a college town. And suddenly it went into just becoming, kind of like a mini version of LA or San Diego. And the growth was just, I just had enough of it. I wanted to get, I didn't mind staying in Arizona, though we did look all over the country, to move. But the thing is that, we were looking around trying to find something that we could afford. Prices were going through the roof. I knew I wanted to have horses. And I knew I didn't want any neighbors. I knew I just wanted, just sort of a, peaceful kind of old-fashioned Western ranch, like something you would see like on a TV show from like the 50s. And, we just couldn't find anything, with the right money. And then suddenly this place popped up. And, my wife and I took a ride out here to look at it. And I could tell as soon as I crossed over the bridge, that is about 4 or 5 miles north of us. It's like you cross that bridge and suddenly something's changed and you're in a different place. You're not where you came from. It's just every time, in 25 years, it still happens every time I do it. And I get the same thing from other people that, come out to the ranch and they say, it's really weird. It's like something changed when I went over that bridge. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like you went to a different space, didn't you? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. So, we got here June 1st of 96, and it has been wildly just off the charts crazy ever since. I mean, it's almost everything that's in the book, as much as the book is a nice coverage as far as a lot of the things that have gone on. We if Bruce and I had the time, we could sit down and write 10 more of them. That's how much still remains to be told.
I do have a question for you. Have you used any technology to try to detect something, like a presence of something that, like when you weren't experiencing something, and if it's been a while, have you tried anything like how like ghost hunters do the EMF things, and have you used anything like that to see if it helps you pinpoint something that might be going on?
Well, let me tell you this, and that is, I don't really go into this much. We don't cover it in the book, but we've had, every agency, every, you name it. I mean, I can't think of anybody who hasn't been out here from a scientific point of view, universities, heavy duty, no name science groups, government, you name it. They've been out here. They have, tested this place. They've done everything everything to do to this place, and they've walked away with a lot of information.
I imagine they, if they didn't want you or the public to understand something that was going on there, then they might say, oh, well, we didn't find anything, then there's that problem too.
Well, Robert Bigelow sent a crew out here a number of years ago that were all ex-FBI. They were all ex-government people. And they got as far as the bridge, and their equipment broke down and they couldn't get across the bridge. It was like they were denied the first time the opportunity to get here. And they turned around, went back up to Las Vegas and sent a second crew. The second crew got here, stayed a week. And at that point, I was getting 3 and 4 phone calls a day about buying the ranch. I mean,
is this after the book came out?
No, long before, long before I'd even really gotten to the point where, I had done much, except at that point, I knew Peter Gersten, and I had gone on the Cause website and put up a lot of information. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, I really wasn't public. Wow. I wasn't, because I was working, in working as a psychiatric social worker and as a therapist. My wife was working first for the FBI and then working, in mental health herself. And, I had contracts with like the Superior Court of Arizona, all these different, agencies and stuff. And so we really had a hard time going public on anything because it challenged our jobs. I mean, it's like you can't be a full-time therapist and then be telling people at night on the radio that you're killing aliens. It's it gets kind of weird.
Right. Or chupacabras. Did you get any interest from X-Files when it was happening?
We've gotten at different times. We've gotten interest from a lot of people. See, the problem is this: our story, it's over the top. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's like it's a little bit of everything. Okay, and it's really hard for people to sort it out. It's not simply explained. We live in an area where we have 2 portals on the property.
Yeah.
And on a day-to-day basis, anything can come through, but we have, really good evidence of it. I mean, I have photographs, I have video, I have artifacts, I have people, that were government people that were here and they were blown out of their socks because of the stuff they saw. They just couldn't believe it. And, to this day, it's still kind of like the best kept secret because, we get a lot of people that say, hey, we want to do a movie, we want to do a TV show, we want to do this, do that. But the bottom line is that when they start trying to sort it out, it's like it's too much for them. They can't wrap their head around it.
Well, one thing too, John, is that anybody who goes through something like you're going through, the last thing you want, you're not out seeking these experiences out around the world, right? It's like anyone who's experienced something like this for real, the last thing people want to do is experience it again. You know what I mean? And it's like you're experiencing something like this over and over and over again. You don't know when it's going to happen. All of a sudden, I mean, we just did a show last week on giants in Chaco Canyon, and there's talk in Chaco Canyon that these red-haired man-eating giants would come out of these portals and throw a bunch of people in a soup kettle, and they called it a man corn. So I mean, the thing about it is, man. The thing about it is, ladies and gentlemen, imagine it, because I live in California. There could be an earthquake at any second. Okay, I could be sitting here, all of a sudden, the ground starts shaking, but then it ends a second later, and I might not see an earthquake for 5 years. But imagine being John, living on this property and having these portals opening up and having things going on every single day and never knowing when that's going to be, Danny. Wow.
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. My birthday was April 28th. That night, I was sitting with my wife having dinner in the living room. We were watching a movie. All of a sudden, this green mist comes from behind me out of nowhere, slams me in the back of the head, takes my dinner plate, throws it across the room, takes my knife and my fork and throws it through the 75-inch big screen TV sitting in front of me.
That feels like jealousy.
And I mean, just like
Green with envy.
Just destroyed the TV.
There you go.
Knocks over a table, knocks over everything. The dog freaked out, ran away, hid. I mean, and this stuff happens. It out of nowhere, no provocation, nothing. And it's devastating to us when it happens because it makes me ferociously angry. It scares the hell out of my wife. And we just look at each other and we say, Jesus Christ, how the hell are we ever going to get out of this ranch? I mean, because that's all at this point, basically, we just want to move. We want to go someplace that is like boring USA, where we don't have to worry about any of this crap, have our horses, have our animals, and live our lives and not mess around with any of this. We're over it.
So I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Okay. No, go ahead. I was just going to comment that, people having the idea that it's strange and weird, and it's like almost unbelievable. It's because we are conditioned to believe that none of that is believable. And we don't understand any of it.
It's exciting, Yeah.
I
mean, I get people all the time that say, "Oh God, if I could just live out there."
Yeah.
I'm like, come up with some cash. I'll make you an arrangement.
Well, right. But that's a normal, natural aspect of our realm that we live in, whatever you want to call this dimension. And if we understood what Earth actually was on a wide scale, no one would find this strange. they would be doing, like you said earlier, helping each other through the situations.
Well, and see, that's the whole thing. People don't, people think that the reality that is presented to them, that they've learned to grow up in and all the rest of it, is the true reality. And what it really comes out to is that reality is just a portrayal. I mean, it's kind of like the Matrix. It's like, unless you're ready to open your mind, open your eyes, open your heart, open your spirit, you're never going to know the difference. You're just going to live your life and watch everything go by and do what you've been programmed and accept it is what this reality is. But that's not what it really is.
My name's Jimmy. It's Aftermath.fm. Into the Microcosm. We're talking to John Edmonds, Bruce McDonald, Stardust Ranch. Danny's here, Epic Journeyman. You have a question. Go ahead and ask John.
Yeah, I hear and I've seen a lot of stories and experienced some weird things that kind of correlate to this. I'm wondering if you can confirm. Actually, Bruce was talking a little bit about this kind of portal idea. You said there was 2 of them on the property, and I'm wondering if you notice like a particular, well, 2 things. One, if there's a particular time of day or night, you know what I mean, season even, where it's more prevalent. And the other thing is, have you noticed that before a manifestation, you feel like a drop in pressure, like a low pressure thing, or almost like a negative ion kind of sensation, like before a storm, anything like that?
Interesting.
Yes, definitely the latter. It's kind of like, it's a little hard to explain, but what it comes out to is that just before you have a really bad thunderstorm or a tornado or something like that, you will get this pressure buildup, and you kind of feel like something's coming. You can't really manifest it or articulate what it is. You just feel this in your gut. And very often here at the ranch, when something's getting ready to happen, we feel something like that. But the other night, didn't feel a thing. Had no idea it was coming. It was just on top of us before we could do anything about it.
That's interesting because it happens to me in California before an earthquake. I'll feel a pre-wave that happens. I'll feel like a vibration. Like when the big one happened in '89, I was in a movie theater, and the movie just ended. I was standing up getting ready to leave, and I all of a sudden felt sick to my stomach, and then a couple seconds later, it started to, super intense shaking. So maybe there is some sort of correlation to the energy release at an earthquake and the energy that comes out when these portals, blink in or blink out. I mean, do you see an actual hole, or is there anything like visible or like a distortion, like when you're looking at a road and it's hot and it looks like there's a mirage? Is there any?
Yeah, it's called Schlieren.
Do you see any of that kind of stuff when that happens?
No. I have actually photographed a picture of the portal open on the back of the property in the sky, and it was big enough. Literally, you could have flown, like if you had an aircraft carrier, it could have gone through, 2 or 3 times over. It was so large. I mean, you could fly B-52s through it. That's how big it is.
Is there any kind of disturbance when you leave the property? Is there any kind of attachments that have now manifested to you or to anyone in your immediate vicinity about some of these things that have come out, some of these energies? Is there do you have effects from the property when you're not there?
He just chops their heads off with a samurai sword.
We have had, we're not really doing visitors very much right now because of the COVID thing and all the rest of it, and we're trying to make some changes on the ranch. But in the past years, we've had lots and lots of visitors. And over the years, we have people like in Hawaii, we got people that are, around the country, really, even in foreign countries. And they will say that once they've been here to the ranch, it seems like there's some kind of I don't want to call it an attachment, but there is some kind of ongoing relationship that they experience even years later where they feel connected. And it's not a subjective feeling. They literally, in some cases, will say that they have seen things appear, in their homes, around them. They have experiences. And it seems to be that there's some kind of energy transference, so That's the best answer I can give you. This place connects with things and people, and it just seems to stay connected.
Go ahead.
Have you ever been to Boleskine House?
Boleskine House.
That's Crowley's old house in the Scottish Highlands.
Yeah.
Oh man,
It's
seen
Jimmy
that.
Page's old place.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
he opened a portal there.
Yeah.
Not Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page might have reopened it, but Crowley did. It never closed it. There's another one in the desert somewhere outside California, Nevada desert where they did those ceremonies with several times different guys tried different things, but originally it was Jack Parsons and what's his name? L. Ron Hubbard. Yeah. But supposedly Crowley had done something similar first. So
Well,
it's a really interesting connection, possibly. About it following you. You know what I mean? Like attaching to you.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is this, and that is people don't understand this, and that is there are government agencies and companies, private companies, throughout the country that have been using these portals now that I'm aware of for at least 10 or 15 years. So they've already gotten to the point where, this isn't just a phenomena that's happening, kind of in the paranormal world. This is something they've actually already gotten to the point where they know how to use.
That's wild. So we got a full chat room over there. Danny, you want to shout out the chat room, aftermath.fm. This is a private chat room, ladies and gentlemen. The only way you can get in is become a member. And the way to become a member is to mosey on over there, aftermath.media or aftermath.fm/microcosm. And
You also have to be one of the cool kids.
yeah, but you become one of the cool kids immediately.
Exactly.
Don't
Don't worry about it. Don't be bothered by your lack of confidence. Once you join, you are one of the cool kids.
That's right. So you have to be cool to know where to hang out. And the people that want to go to the good show, they know where to come to after Clyde Lewis. You stick around after Clyde Lewis, you're going to get the Aftermath staff every single night, Monday through Friday, right here at 10:30 Pacific. And tonight we're talking to John Edmonds and Bruce McDonald, the author of John Edmonds' story, The Stardust Ranch. You can find that on Amazon, Bruce. Is that correct? Is that where you can find the book?
The book I co-authored is on Amazon.
Right, yeah. So you can find that on Amazon, ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested. So, Danny, do you want to shout out? Hey, there's Who's Your Dad. Do you want to shout out the chat real quick, and then we'll continue on with the...
Sure. Yep. All right. We have Ace Hanlon, ASAP Hollywood, Beach PCB, BFB Faber, Big James, Braids, Caveman 79, Chadrick Myers, hi, Sharon, Chris from the UK, Cigar 58, Mr. Clyde himself, Dave Casey 2019, DB12, D Martin, I Solo, Finbar, Foxitos, Freedom, HN Fitness, Who's Your Daddy, Ice Cream Man, it's real now too. It's real now. It's getting real. Jeremiah H, Jew, our favorite one, Jimmy Jean,
Mazel
tov.
Well, it's
I
nice.
always forget to be ready for that.
I know. Well, I appreciate that the Jews appreciate the show and they show up at the chat room, and I just want to say, Mazel tov, Shalom. Go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. That strange guy, Jimmy Jean, he's in there.
We're all inclusive, ladies and gentlemen. We're not shapists. We're not racists. Nope. Everybody's welcome in the Microcosm After Hours.
No matter what your identification is, even if you are identifying as a toaster.
That's right.
You're still my buddy.
Toast on. Go ahead.
So welcome. JTFU 101, Jumper Freak 86, K-Log, LA Myers, Elware, Massacre Moody, Menace Man, Mike 7171, Moose Girl, Whoop Whoop, Nepo, Nods So Cool.
Not
Yes,
so
you
cool.
are. Come on.
Come on.
Philip from, I can't see, it starts with an H, it cuts it off for me. Racer, Cheryl, Solo Senior Low, Tia
Damn.
Cooper, really weird, unusual Danny chick. What's wrong with her head? What's on her
the
head?
chat room's packed for John.
It
man.
is
Look
packed with a lot of really cool kids. 48 right now.
I think we're gonna
Tia
have
Cooper, did I say that? I'm sure it's worth double mention. Way Cool Snoopy, Rowdy times 10, and Yaz Man.
Damn. Well, let me tell you something. There's so many people, and we may have to pull out a pinata and have a twerk contest later on. Hey, here's the Foo Fighters. It's Aftermath.
Portal picture, actually, that was online somewhere. I believe I've seen in the past. Might have been a YouTube video even, right, John? I think I saw that with the one you were describing with the large hole that you took a picture of, right?
Yes.
But what a lot of people don't know about this area, it's right there outside of Gila Bend, between Gila Bend and Phoenix, right? Up in that, going up that road.
It's between Buckeye and Gila Bend.
Yes. And so along that road, it's kind of like almost just like a part of the mythos of the area that everybody sees UFOs on that road. If not that road, down on the 8 below, like coming into where was it Dateland and all that stuff is coming in from the west side, coming in that way, then vectoring on up. And there's all these things about military operations and stuff like that running up there, and they run search and rescue and things like that. But it's so much of a phenomenon there that they even have that UFO cafe, right, on the road on the way up there. It has the UFO on top.
Over in Gila Bend.
Yeah. So I wonder if you've seen in the past or researched in the past if there was also a Native American mythos, some folklore that falls into may fall into play rather in this area as well. Because I know that they have all that stuff with the Apaches coming up. They're a little farther up, but all through there, that whole area, I know all the way up in through Central Arizona. From there, there's all kinds of myths that follow that culture, right? We don't have the man-eating giants, I don't think, but we have a lot of other ones, and I wonder if that applies to your area.
Yeah, it does. Actually, where the ranch is, the whole general area, was actually a place where they conducted like magical ceremonies and things like that. We have actually seen. In fact, the night that it's kind of funny, the night that we were airing on television for Ghost Adventures, we had a number of people here. And after the show was over, we walked outside to say goodnight to everybody. And we saw what looked like about a 10-foot tall Indian brave dancing like to a ceremonial music and drums and the whole works on the back of the property. And we just stood around and watched that. And we were just like, wow, how weird that would, the synchronicity of that whole thing. And I mean, we sat there and watched it for a couple of minutes. The interesting thing was all of us tried to film it and not one of us got anything. But
like you all shared the same site. Like you could collaborate later.
Yeah.
Correlate.
Exactly. But none of our phones would pick up anything.
That's the story of my life lately.
Yeah. It's
same
so weird.
Thing.
The ranch is just like that. I mean, you can have something that is, shockingly important to cover, to get videotaped, and you can't get any tape. You can't get any footage. It doesn't show up. All it does is show up like, white noise.
Is there some sort of a magnetic anomaly that happens that may
what we know is this, and that is that something underground here sucks the life and the energy out of everything here. We go through, I have a number of vehicles here that I have to use for ranch work and stuff. And the batteries, about 6 weeks, about every 6 weeks, the batteries either have to be changed or they have to be renewed or something. I mean, it's like we go through probably $1,500, $2,000 in car batteries every year.
Wow. Yeah, that's an interesting phenomenon in and of itself. This seems to be prevalent too, because since the moment that everybody had a cell phone in their hand, you'd make the assumption that everybody's going to start all of a sudden seeing a bunch of documentation of big feet and different cryptids and all the stuff. But for some reason, these phones seem to blink out at just the right crucial moment where the documentation could take place. So it's an interesting phenomenon. Did you want to say something, Johnny? I saw you over there. You look like you're ready to jump in there. Danny.
No, I'm just listening.
You're in the chat. You're in the chat room.
I'm in the chat, and I'm just so much going on in my head over all of this.
All right.
Well, for people who don't know, because just kind of tuned in, what happened with John? I mean, he's had manifestations of aliens. He's had his wife levitate. He's seen creatures walking around. Seen all this stuff, and had, like I said, the green fog come in and have a poltergeist kind of experience with kind of a violent not just a small thing, right? To smash the TV and throw things across the room and all that. So it's not just something that's a psychological kind of event where people could attribute it to that, where even a ghost sighting that it was an apparition, it actually had physical effects.
Right, and
right?
I think he would actually kind of, be the guy to know that it's not,
Right.
it wasn't psychological. This is probably the perfect moment for me to ask my question. So I would like for you to, please, if you would, explain to me your steel wool entity. I'm imagining this massive, like 10-foot tall Brillo pad in the distance.
Well, yeah, it's kind of weird. There's we've seen so many things over the years. I'm getting a lot of echo.
Yeah, could you get a little closer to your microphone, John?
I'd be French kissing it if I was any closer.
All right, well, just stand down. We'll just take it easy. Don't do that.
He sounds good to me now.
Okay.
I think the echo's gone.
Okay, good. There you go.
Okay, good.
It's the portal.
We had a number of years ago, before we ended up having neighbors move in around us, we used to get these, I guess you could call them creatures. I don't know that they're alive or what they were, but they would be, like 10 feet tall. And imagine a human-looking shape, but the outside of it looked like a Brillo pad, like a steel wool, dark color, no discernible facial features or anything, just kind of like the shape of a human. And we'd see these things out in the desert walking around, and they weren't threatening, they weren't doing anything but except just they were out there. But they were so big, and
They were moving around then.
Yeah. And eventually it got to the point where they started coming around the horses, and that made me very nervous because, normally we rescue a lot of horses, and we'll have anywhere from, 15 to 20. Sometimes we've had as many as, 60 to 100 horses here that we've, been able to find out in the desert and return back to the ranch and get them healthy, and then, get them shipped out to programs and, out to individuals that wanted horses. And, so anything that gets around the horses or gets around our dogs or anything, we get pretty nervous about. And, I actually took a few pot shots at it, and, I know I hit it. It didn't even react. It was as if it, if you can imagine an AK-47 or an AR-15, round penetrating something and not even having it react, pretty strange stuff.
Wow. It's a mind.
So the Brillo pad description has got me curious because it's almost like it's trying to draw in the physical energy to make a manifestation, right? So it's taking like the tumbleweed residue. There's tumbleweeds out there. It's taking the dirt. It's taking everything that's out there to make a body, right? But it's not enough to be solid. So when you shoot it, it just goes right through. But it's actually
read my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's as if, see, one of the things that's hard to explain out here, and that is that we have proof that time is different out here. We've had, people leave the ranch with 2 stopwatches, put one down south of us, where we call the UFO site, where we see all sorts of UFOs, which is actually 17 and a half miles south of us. And we would have both of these watches going at the same time. But when the person brought the other watch back with them from the UFO site, it would be 2 different times. And they could be anywhere from 4 to like 15 minutes difference between the watches. And the reason I bring that up is because what we've determined is that things here are not fixed in space or time. This ranch, this 10 acres, and the area right around it seems to be like it's not locked into the same time frame as the rest of the world. It will change back and forth. And that's just one of the peculiarities. We've had pilots that were in commercial planes fly over the ranch and say that the ranch wasn't there. And they specifically, every time they leave the airport and fly over, they would look for us specifically. And
You've got like a Bermuda Triangle thing going on.
yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, everything about this ranch is just totally weird.
Do you
Have you tested for like static field?
Like I said, we've had so many people come out here and test stuff. I couldn't even begin to tell you all the stuff that's been tested. We've had, guys come out here with drones and try to fly them on the property, and they won't fly. They won't take off. They won't read signal. They couldn't do anything with them. They take them right outside the fence to the property, and they fly normally. They'd try to fly them back over the ranch, and they'd crash and burn before they could get on the property.
That's that battery phenomenon you were talking about too. It could drain the battery so fast that the drone can't be powered, right? You talk about sapping the energy out.
Yeah,
yeah,
wow.
It's just bizarre.
That's
I was wondering, Men in Black or kind of like abduction experiences, anything like that?
We had the Men in Black here twice. Literally, a friend was over, and I had brought out my gun collection over the years. Even though I wasn't really a gun guy, I started with one 357 and ended up with a whole picnic table full of guns. And we were cleaning guns, and an SUV pulled up in front of the ranch. Two guys that looked like the Blues Brothers got out and began to walk toward our front gates. And then, lo and behold, they walked right through them without even opening them. It was like imagine like walking through a cloud of smoke, and just came into the ranch, walked right up to me. I met them about 20 feet, 30 feet away from where the picnic table with the guns was. And I walked right up to one of them, and I said, "Can I help you with something?" And the guy just looked at me, and he says, "You are John Edmonds. You need to stop posting about this ranch on the Cause website." And he stopped, looked at me with the sunglasses on and everything, said it again, and then both of them spun around, turned around, and just walked right through the gates and disappeared into the SUV and took off.
So you're on the 33rd parallel.
Yeah, we're on the 33rd parallel, along with Bradshaw Ranch and along with Skinwalker. We're all on the same timeline.
Have you ever heard that metal screeching sound or any vibrations under the ground? Is there any potentiality that these ranches may be connected with underground tunnels that have existed, since time? Is it possible that there's some sort of, because what I'm hearing, because I worked in the cell industry for 10 years, and what I'm hearing sounds a lot like interference of some kind. There's some sort of a frequency being emanating from your property. And I'm, it's curious to me because I can drop a drone out of the sky with the right interference at 2.4 gigahertz. Everybody's transmitting their drones at 2.4 or 5 gigahertz. So, I mean, all you have to do is interfere with that signal. You can drop a drone anywhere. So,
well, I don't think it's just drones because, we've gotten to the point where small aircraft won't fly over us.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing will fly over us. We used to get military helicopters that would come over the ranch in threes, these old Cobra helicopters.
Uh-huh.
And they would literally, when they came over the top of the ranch, they would damn near come down on top of the roof.
Yeah.
They would just literally almost fall out of the air. It was like somebody it was like they sucked the air right out of the air. I mean, it's just bizarre.
Yeah,
I can't even begin to explain it. That's the whole thing. I'm a social worker and a therapist, and I'm like the last guy in the world that should have been chosen, to be the guy that's supposed to explain all this stuff and everything else, because I don't have the background.
Right.
I'm not that guy.
Danny, are you that? Do you have a question for the
No,
chat?
I was just shaking my head. Just
anybody in the chat room
absorbing it all.
Yeah, did anybody throw any questions?
Yes,
in the
there
chat?
is a question over there, and I heard Epic ask if you like the natives of the area had any input on that, but I missed your answer. So if you could repeat that, please.
I would tell you this, and that is the only contact that I've had with any Native Americans. We're getting echo again. Would be just people that came here and boarded horses. Nothing about the ranch, nothing about anything, particularly special, paranormal, or anything like that. The ranch is very well known locally, but we're shunned. We're completely shunned. People don't really talk to us. They're scared of us. They avoid us completely.
Yeah, I bet. Like having, some sort of connection to you would make them feel like they were going to have a connection to what would be going on around you, possibly.
Well, when they first move here, they have a tendency to come over and including even trespassing.
Like you're a roadside attraction or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're alien Disneyland or something, and they would confront me and say, well, are all these stories true that we read about you and hear about you? And I'm like, well, I don't know which ones you're talking about, but if I put it on the air or I put it in a book or anything like that, I guarantee you it's real.
So Bruce, I want to ask a question now. So now, do you feel like there's a separation between what some people consider to be aliens and what some people consider to be demons? And I mean, because when I'm listening to your story here, and I'm thinking to myself, it reminds me of a friend of mine who was a ballet dancer and had an attachment on his leg, and he couldn't dance anymore, and he had problems with his leg. He had knee problems or whatever. I mean, that's the physical representation of it. But what I'm really curious about is when you leave this ranch, do you have a feeling that there's any sort of attachment to you from the other side of is there some sort of I just feel like there's some sort of an attachment that would go along with what you're experiencing, because why else would you stay there? I mean, in other words,
I can tell you exactly why I stay here.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Ranches cost millions of dollars, okay? And I got in, back in, 96, when you could buy a ranch for $250,000 and, count your blessings.
Right.
If we tried to replace this ranch today, everything that we've been looking at online is anywhere from a minimum of $3 million to about $7 million. And I don't have that kind of bread.
Yeah. Well, I'm
not going to sacrifice the animals. I mean, I was already stupid enough to buy the damn place, and I'm stuck with it.
Well, that is
it looks like.
And that's such an important aspect of what you're saying too, is the rescue of the Mustangs that are out there, because basically there's nobody to take care of them, and they
Well, it's more than that, and that is that these animals have lived here, most of them a good part of their lives, and they're very attached to me. They're very attached to the ranch. My wife and I, we talk about if we were to take them and move some of the places that we've talked about going to, how in the heck would these animals adapt to being able to go to a completely different environment? So then we looked at maybe moving up north, Mare, someplace like that. But everything we've looked at is just, there's been a problem. The place we were looking at in Mare, all of a sudden they had a huge fire yesterday, and now that whole area is, burning up.
Well, do you feel like there's a differentiation between what some people consider to be aliens and some people consider to be evil, or things that are going on that are dark and evil? Is there a differentiation that you feel on that? I'm curious.
Yeah, I would tell you this, and that is that from a spiritual point of view, there's definitely something called evil. Okay, are there aliens? Yes, there are aliens. We're talking, all sorts of different things. Fourth dimension is full of all sorts of negative darkness. Okay. I think what happens with this ranch is that it is interdimensionally connected, not only across time, but it's also connected, to various different locations, around the galaxy, but it's also connected, in terms of dimensionally.
You have a couple questions over there about animals.
Sure.
Rowdy would like to know, how do the animals react to the area? And this is sort of like who's your daddy says, any noteworthy mutilations?
Well, we have had.
That was
Sorry.
John. That was inevitable.
Yeah, I'll talk about anything. It's. I have no
Can I
secret.
just say something?
Please do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so this one of the reasons I bolted in 2012 is John sent me about 40 pictures of horses and dogs.
Oh,
I mean, I couldn't even look at them hardly. And I'll let John finish the story, but no human being could do to these animals what was done. I'll stop there.
There have been, over the years, we have had horses that were attacked. We've lost 3 horses over the years. Now, remember, this is over 25 years, okay? So, yeah, it's brutal, it's gruesome, but this is stuff that happened, many years ago. And, we had dogs that were killed. We had, it was a war here. I mean, I was having firefights with these grays 2 and 3 times a week, and killing them as fast as I could get my hands on them, literally. And, so this is, we fought it out from the get-go. When I finally decided that there was no place for us to move to, that we had no choice of being able to do anything except stay here or move back into an apartment. And let me tell you, I'm sorry, I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but I'll stay here and kill grays all day long before I move back into an apartment.
so after you killing them, are they still like, yeah, whatever, coming back?
Yeah, they come back.
So I wonder how they would respond if you did something like put some heads on a stake out on your front gate.
like Dracula. Yeah.
Yeah, like
I don't think
here's
they're
a
particularly
warning.
offended by it. I don't think they're particularly offended by it. From my experience, the interpretation of how we think and how we feel and, all the different things that humans go through versus what ETs go through are completely different. And over the years now, I've had a chance to meet quite a few different types of ETs. So,
Wow.
So the grays, they like what happens to the bodies and stuff when they get.
If you take the head, the body stays. If you don't take the head, then they disappear.
And so were you able to like save any remnants of them, or they just
everything that I had went to Grass Lakes, Michigan, to a lab there,
You
and
didn't
from
keep
there
anything?
well, what am I going to do with it?
I don't know. Souvenir.
No,
Right.
Believe
Hang
me,
a
if
toe
I
on a
do
necklace or
souvenirs, I'm
something.
going to mount one over the.
Do they have
fireplace.
toes?
Do they have toes?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, toes were never a big item on my, observation list.
It just came to me.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
okay.
I've heard descriptions of toes like that. They're actually like almost like bird feet, but not like birds. Like two, like just a fork, like 2 protrusions instead of toes. I've heard that. And one of the other things I've heard, we don't know if it's real or not, is that the idea is that they're not really biological entities at all. It's just a manifestation, like a suit, like a remote, like a drone, right? It's inhabited, it's remotely piloted from the other
There's
side.
different types. I can tell you that from disassembling them. Dr. Levengood, who was the doctor that had me literally take one apart and pack it and mail it to him. I ended up, I'm probably the only person who's ever FedExed an alien to anybody. But I followed his instructions perfectly and boxed it up and FedExed him an entire gray, all, the works. So,
Yeah.
what can I
Sorry,
tell
go
you?
ahead.
That's okay. So the thing about it is that I know at least 8 universities that had samples because everything was tested, where not one university knew what the other was doing or even knew that they had samples. We didn't tell them how we got the stuff. We didn't tell them anything. We just said, here, this is biological matter. Please test it. Tell us what you think of it. And all that stuff came back. And they said that, you have something that is definitely not from anything that we've ever seen before. It's not from this planet. It contains matter that is both from a animal type creature and from a plant-like creature within the DNA structure.
Wow.
And so and we have proof of that. Dr. Levengood and I were going to hold a press conference. And then just before we were able to release the information, suddenly he died. And then his wife died at the same time, and the lab was shut down and everything disappeared, and so on and so forth.
That is not even a little bit surprising to me. Somebody did want to know, have you had like clergy come out to bless your property or anything?
Yeah. We've had different flavors of clergy.
Different flavors.
Everybody's done their thing. In most cases, it pretty much seemed to rile up the spirits or whatever's here. It's the house and just the property in general is very reactive to whatever it's exposed to. If my wife and I get in a fight, get in an argument or something, you can just feel this place sucking up the energy from it.
Wow.
And then we'll begin to see phenomena. If we had like two dogs that got into a fight and started ripping on each other, the next thing you know, there's stuff starting to happen. We've had, people that have come here that have gotten into it with, other family members and stuff, started things up.
So you need to get like some Zen master crystal bowl sounds playing, like out some speakers out in your yard all night.
I'm looking at one right now. I have one of those exact bowls sitting.
Wow, really?
You know what? So
Do it.
So Epic Journeyman. So what I'm hearing here, I'm hearing that there's a fluctuation, okay, in whatever frequency band is coming out of that property. Now, there's potential to offset a signal with another signal, crash it against each other to nullify it. Do you think it'd be possible to do some type of work on John's property if you were able to determine? Now, let me ask you this, John, because I built cell sites for 10 years, and when we go out with a spectrum analyzer, we're not looking for every frequency in the universe. We're looking for the one we're looking for. Has anybody gone to your property with a spectrum analyzer and found an unusual spike in any type of frequency band that's going on your property specifically? Is there any ear ringing that goes on with certain people?
Yes. Yeah. It's not uncommon at all for people when they first get here. Like we used to hear this all the time. People would be here about 20, 25 minutes, and they would start to feel like they were getting sick, like they were suddenly having like an allergic reaction, or they were having some kind of something was changing in them or around them. They would say that they were experiencing some tinnitus, all sorts of things like that. I've always heard that over the years. I've been here for so long that, pretty much with me, I guess I'm pretty much immune to it.
One time I was doing some work and I was on a roof. There was an old carrier, a Verizon carrier was on this roof. Verizon was supposed to have their site turned off, but it was not off. And I was standing on the roof with a spectrum analyzer looking for this other signal for about 30 minutes, standing right in front of these antennas, getting blasted by signal. And I was totally sick to my stomach. My ears were ringing. I mean, you're describing all the same things, or some of the things, or some of the symptoms that happen to people when they get hit with signal, depending on what the frequency level or what the frequency is that you're being hit with. But this is interesting to me because, as far as jamming signal goes from a military perspective, Epic Journeyman, there's potential to, if the frequency is known, to use an offset frequency to bash against the other one to nullify them both. Is there not?
Yeah, just like noise canceling headphones. Same kind of premise in a way. Yeah, and so you can definitely jam the frequency or nullify the frequency, make it a dead zone, a dead band. I think that you have to find out which one it is, if it's higher band or if it's lower. Like, there's a good possibility if you're hearing, I don't know if you've ever heard like low rumble sound in your ears. That's oftentimes ELF, extremely low frequency that transmits through the earth, and it's used to communicate the submarines, like in Taos, New Mexico.
I hear that.
They hear that. Yeah.
So it's interesting you say that, and I'll tell you why. Because there are times when we've seen triangles. We've seen different objects very close to, like 150 feet off the ground here. And you could feel signal in your chest, like bass. It felt like somebody had like a 15-inch woofer, and they were putting about like a I don't know, huge amount of power through it. And it felt like it was like literally pushing on your chest.
You got the thump. Yeah. Well, that would be it, right? And there's certain spots where the tectonic plates kind of meet together, and we're talking about crystals and mica and the ground and whatever things that can resonate. Quartz, a lot of quartz, maybe. Yeah.
We do. We have a lot of quartz here. I have pieces of quartz here that are, basketball size.
It could be. I'd start looking more towards the low end. So it makes you wonder. I think that's worth checking out. You need some good equipment.
So you know what, dude?
Find out.
This is exactly. I mean, this is really hitting me because, these portals opening up is the same idea as a stairway to heaven. And I think, the vibration that you're looking for that opens these portals up is not lower. I think it's higher. I think you're seeking a higher vibrational state so you can leave and go through a portal that exists like that you can. So I'm thinking that whatever frequency is on your property is a high frequency. I think the thumping from these pyramidal shapes, I think they're using the harmonics to, that's how you can move giant objects with the harmonic, with the resonant frequency. I mean, you're moving giant objects. Maybe that thump is like a thump that these vehicles are sending out to keep them, harmonized with the gravitational forces, keeping that offset like we're talking about. It's like it's offsetting, and that's what's floating. Anyways, Mom's Jimmy. Go ahead.
Let me add something to that. We used to be. It almost seemed like there was a schedule here where a couple of times a month we would know when a portal was going to open, because we'd look up at night and we would see literally the sky would have as many as 13, 14, 15 different craft sitting there waiting for that portal to open up so that they could go through to wherever they were going to.
Wow.
And very often that's when we detected this signal, this thumping, this kind of, heaviness. And the horses would get involved. They would be very aware of it. The dogs would be very aware of it. There weren't any real people out here then. And so, we really didn't get, too much, interaction with any other humans, saying, hey, did you see that or feel that? But we've had people out here that were, checking out the ranch, and they would notice it. So, I think everything you're saying here is very relevant.
So Rowdy in the chat room at Aftermath.fm is asking, do you have pictures of craft? So that's what he's asking in the chat.
We do have some. I got to the point where, this sounds really bad, but it's the truth. And that is, I get so sick of all this, dealing with it for so many years that, I have pictures. I have dozens of pictures, hundreds of pictures of stuff, video, back on, 8mm or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But, you put something out there and you get 100 people saying, oh, that's bullshit, and it's like, I just get tired of dealing with it. This is not what I want my life to be about. I don't want anything to do with this stuff. I don't want anything to do with the paranormal. I don't want anything to do with this ranch or anything to do with any of it. What I want to do is leave and go do other things.
That's what I was.
Well, here's a question you might not have heard before. What do the aliens smell like?
I don't know. I can't.
They
smell
need
anything.
to know that. They really need to know that.
I lost my sense of taste and smell about 5 years ago, and it's never come back.
One of
the things
never know.
that I've thought about oftentimes with this kind of these vector points, is that it's like a wormhole, right? You hear that, you see it in Star Trek and things like that, and all these science fiction movies. But what if it's not a spot in space like we normally think of it being out in the cosmos somewhere? But it's a nexus point in its specific locations in time and space, even here on the planet, right? And so these things manifest when the portal opens to go through, because they have a window. They need to catch that window. Once they go through, so it's like a big traffic intersection for a brief time until they get to wherever they're going. They may have a quiet spell until they, it happens again. So that's that point. So from anywhere else in the cosmos, like a quantum kind of thing in a way. They know that this is
I can tell you how it was explained to me if you really want to know. And this came directly from somebody that is an ET, and that is, imagine like an X and a Y matrix, and basically it's 3-dimensional. It's actually 5-dimensional, and you pick a point in it, and once you go through the portal, they have the ability to be able to summon energy for propulsion, and it takes them directly to that point, that one aspect of wherever that is. And it's not being done with ships particularly. It can be done with ships, but literally it's the transference of physical matter from one point in the matrix to another. And it can be, that matrix is so unimaginably huge that it's almost endless. But something to point out here, and again, this is something that was explained to me. I'm only repeating what I've had explained to me, and that is that Earth is basically kind of like a terrarium. Humanity is here. It doesn't have very much insight or knowledge about anything outside of the terrarium. But I mean, literally, we're just like ants inside this thing, and everything that's really the truth and reality and everything else is outside of that terrarium. And we have no way of right now being able to interact and get a perspective or get the information about what we're really part of. We're just a little tiny dot in the middle of a great sea of dots. But there are hundreds of planets that, just even close to us, that are inhabited. Basically they're just growing humans here and various different species of animals, and transferring them, from one to another.
Man.
Bio farming.
Man corn.
Yeah.
Growing us like corn, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, are there hundreds of other terrariums?
Yeah, thousands of them. I mean, to the point where, we have a sort of a very rudimentary conceptual idea of what might be possible. But in terms of what's been explained to me, we don't really have a clue. We're worried about going to Mars. Mars is nothing. I mean, it's absolutely nothing. We're taking our first steps, in the dirt compared to what's, really out there.
Hey, Bruce. Hey, John. Are you guys feeling generous? Do you want to give a book away on this show tonight? Let me ask you that question. Do you want to? You don't have to.
I'm fine with it, but I mean, Bruce is the guy who's in charge.
There you go. That's what I'm saying. I'm talking to the man over there, Bruce McDonald. All you lie.
Yeah, we'll give a book away.
All right,
we'll give a paper.
Okay, so listen, we're gonna open up the phone lines at the top of the hour, ladies and gentlemen. 626-999-4761. 626-999-4761. Now we're gonna give a book away. It's Bruce's book, so he's gonna give it to whichever caller calls in. Whoever's the lucky caller, Bruce is going to choose it. All right.
Give me a sampling of callers. I want to soup Nazi this giveaway.
That's what I'm saying. You're going to hear the callers, and then whichever caller that comes in that wins, I'll announce it. Okay, Danny, you keep track of caller number 1, caller number 2, whoever.
No book for you.
No book for you. Whoever. Okay, see, the phone's already starting to ring. All right, let me get the music going. Before I answer this call. My name's Jimmy. It's in the MicroCosm's Aftermath.fm, late night style. This ain't your granddaddy's late night. You ain't sleeping with your pillow over there with George Norrie. Nah, this is Aftermath.fm, man. This is where the cool people come. This is where it's all going on.
You mean George Snorri?
That's what I mean. Looks like we got Who's Your Daddy on the line. (626-999-4761). 626-999-4761. Get your ass in here. You're gonna get a book, maybe. If Bruce likes your vibe, if he likes the cut of your jib, boom, you're gonna get a book.
Me, I don't want to make a mistake, jeopardize my future. You want to know something? Every now and then, say what the fuck. What the fuck gives you freedom? Freedom brings opportunity. Opportunity makes your future.
Your stats are very respectable. You've done some solid work here. But it's not quite Ivy League now, is it?
You know, Bill, there's one thing I've learned in all my years. Sometimes you gotta say, what the fuck?
I beg your pardon?
The average fan listens for, are you ready for this? An hour and 20 minutes.
How can that be?
Answer most commonly given, I want to see what he'll say next.
All right, okay, fine. But what about the people who hate?
Good point. The average hater listens for 2.5 hours a day.
Look, but if they hate him, why do they listen?
Most common answer, I want to see what he'll say next.
Well, there it is. Who's your daddy? Are you there? Because I see you're on the line. Did you have a question for John tonight?
I am here.
Excellent. Well, come on in, brother.
Yes.
Great. So, did you have a question for John, Stardust Ranch, or a question for Bruce? I know you're going to have a question for Danny, but leave Danny alone and gets directly to the guest. Go ahead.
That would be hate.
Oh, yeah. Well, definitely a shout out to Danny. Real. The inexplicable excellence of this crew, you guys, and your show's always amazing, but tonight is especially amazing. John, your guest, I do have a question for you, sir. When you moved in the mid-'90s, what were your first inklings that something was afoot, just to start off with?
Well, it was strange from day one, because when we first got to the ranch, we had rented a moving truck with all of our stuff in it, moving from Glendale, Arizona. And we got here to the ranch, we opened the door, and all the stuff that was supposed to be moved out was still here. It was like the owners, they just took the cash and off they went. They just left everything behind. And, there was no place for us to move our stuff in. And, so I called the realtor and I gave him hell. And he said, go to a movie, go eat dinner, go do whatever. Come back in 12 hours, I'll have everything out of there. I thought, well, that's cool. So that's exactly what we did. We came back about 8 or 9 o'clock that night, and everything was out of the house, and we were relieved. We decided we'd go ahead and move everything in the next day. But I went out to check on the pool, because one of the nice things about this property when we first got here was they had a beautiful pool. And I opened the back door to the pool area, and lo and behold, all the appliances, everything that had been in the house was now in the pool, and all the heavy stuff was in the deep end. And the pool was full of water. It was running. And, so I was like, oh my God. So I immediately got on the phone and started screaming, and saying, what the hell? And the realtor told me, he goes, I didn't put it in there. I don't know how it got in there. I'm sorry, but you know what? You paid cash. It's your problem. Goodbye. And that was the very first day. So
That's
never,
not a good sign.
Yeah, no kidding. You know, and then there's, other incidents right after that, where we had a guy that we kind of called the machete guy, which was this kind of grizzly 40-ish guy, who came up the front driveway area carrying a machete wrapped with a piece of leather around his wrist, swinging it in front of him. And I walked outside and met him in the driveway, and I said, can I help you? What are you here for? And he goes, well, hey, I live in that building back there. And I said to myself, wait a minute, there was nothing in the paperwork that said that, anybody came with the place. And, I told him that. And he goes, well, I'm the guy that kills the monsters. And I said, monsters? What monsters? And he said to me, well, you'll find out. And I said, well, would you do me a favor and get your stuff and, leave, please, because we don't need anybody. And he packed his stuff, wrapped it up in a sheet, threw it over his shoulder, and traipsed off the same direction he'd come from. So, those two things happened within literally 48 hours, 72 hours after we moved in. And then after that, we called for having a regular landline put in. And, because I'm thinking to myself, hey, we're out in the middle of nowhere. If our cell phones stop working or something, we better have a landline. We tried everything you can think of to get a landline. It took 4 different appointments before Southwest Bell would actually get somebody to come out here and put in a phone. And the reason, as that was explained to me, is that nobody wanted to come to the property because it had such a reputation. And finally, when the guy did show up, I questioned him, and he began to tell me the story about this property and all the things that had happened here. And it has a long and sordid history that's all in the book.
Who's your daddy as a truck driver? Who's your daddy? Let me ask you a question, bro. You spent a lot of time on the road. Now, I know you must have seen something in all the time you spend behind the glass, bro. Have you seen anything yourself that you've wondered about or that you might be able to talk about now?
Fortunately, I've seen a couple different things. One was long before I ever started driving. I was in south central Colorado, west of Pueblo, Canyon City, along the Highway 50 corridor. And I was walking into town, had a hankering for a bowl.
Yeah.
And I was going downtown to the Victoria to get some beer and hopefully run into somebody who was holding.
Right.
And right over the municipal airport was a set of 3 inexplicable lights. They were in a slow, very, very methodical sort of a rotation. It was absolutely dark. Even with the lights of the airport, I couldn't see anything but the 3 points of light. And it was a strange experience, but I felt calm throughout, like just another day.
So is this
when it's obviously something unexplicable?
Is this in that area right there where Colorado and New Mexico sort of come together? Is that
no, it's not the Four Corners region. We're talking more right on the Continental Divide. We're between 9,000 and 10,000 feet elevation.
So you're
here.
talking about you're talking about coming over the top of the Continental Divide.
Right before, in fact, Poncha Pass, Poncha, I believe it's spelled, was the access to get to western Colorado or central Colorado. It's just west of Royal Gorge. That's pretty easy to locate on the map.
Yeah.
And famously, Canyon City, which is on the east side of that river gorge there, you find several prisons. In fact, I think McVeigh was held there.
Maybe.
Because, they're in the business of killing people in Colorado, apparently.
Well,
But,
apparently
other than that, nothing really otherworldly to talk about, except I did see a really incredible fireball one night here in South Texas. And
all right.
It was just like I could almost reach out and touch it. It had to be, the size of at least a softball to the eye, and
yeah.
It lingered for a good 10 seconds before it went over the horizon. I couldn't see it. I'm guessing it probably landed in Mexico. But the green light of it and the way it crumbled as it was, coming in. At first I was like, well, that must be space junk. But the more I thought about it, with that gold tail coming off of it, and the silence of it, I was like, man, I'm thinking a fireball, meteorite.
All right, well, here's your moment in time, man. You might not be Mr. Right, but you're definitely Mr. Right now. Who's your daddy? So you get in there and ask John one more question, and we'll get some more people in here. 626-999-4761, 626-999-4761, ladies and gentlemen. Who's your daddy? You're on fire. There you go, brother. Hit up John, and then we'll get some more callers in here.
Excellent. I appreciate the follow-up question, Jimmy. John, what is your greatest perceived hurdle in getting this ranch sold? Because obviously you're not looking to get a competitive price. You just want a price that's suitable. I mean, other than, perhaps the past of it. What's been the fall through? Because I'm sure you've had to have listed it a few times by now.
We did list it, and we did get a tremendous response. But the problem is the phenomena. People get hung up on the phenomena itself. They start to unravel the story, and they realize, that this place is something really wild. We've had offers, cash offers that were tremendous offers, but the problem was they were from foreign individuals that represented other countries, and they were not countries that I felt were particularly good allies to the United States. And I felt that it would be, if I went ahead and sold the ranch to somebody from that country, I didn't feel like it was a good thing for the United States. I'm a patriot before almost anything else, and I'm not going to turn around and sell this ranch to somebody who's going to use it for something bad.
Have you ever tried pitching one of these production companies or a company that makes movies on buying the property from you, that they could spend that kind of money on a property and use it to make money on a movie that they did there once they became an owner? So have you guys ever potentially talked to any of these movie companies or these television networks to maybe potentially purchase the property? Because that might be a good way to go. Rowdy in the chat room. Howdy, Rowdy. You just bought a book over on Amazon. Great, man. Thank you very much. The guys appreciate it. So what about that? Have you ever contacted any of these people? Because now they're making a show about, obviously you guys talked about it earlier. They're making a show about this other ranch or whatever. It's on the same parallel as you, some of the same experiences that you're having. You think there may be a tie-in there? Maybe you could contact a production company and see if there may be some way they can throw you some bones over there?
I got to tell you, everything that we have reported over the years has turned up on Skinwalker. And the fact that Bigelow came out, had his people come out here for a solid week, and all they did was research, interviewed us. I mean, they literally had a whole team here for a week, gathering all the information, and then all of a sudden Skinwalker comes out, and it's like, it's our story.
So, yeah, just to be clear there, because it hasn't been clearly stated in this interview, we're talking about Robert Bigelow of Bigelow Aerospace, the billionaire, a less public-facing Elon Musk type dude who's very into this whole... John, did he actually own Skinwalker before the new guy bought it that's doing the show?
Yes.
Yeah, he did. So that's the Bigelow we're talking, folks.
And wow. This is the same guy that absolutely promised us up and down that he would, give us a copy or give us access to all the information that he discovered here. And when I confronted him about that, he said, "Well, you don't need that information. Just sell me the ranch." But he wouldn't offer anything that was even close. I mean, when he paid off the mortgage, that's how bad the offers were. And what I realized was the guy just wanted to steal the ranch and then turn around and do whatever he was going to do with it. But I absolutely said no. I mean, I didn't. It's not like I'm out here trying to make a huge profit on this deal. But the bottom line is that I've got to have enough money to be able to put another ranch together someplace so I can move to it.
Yep.
And I don't need a $3,000 a month mortgage.
No. I mean, it's there's enough going on out there that obviously there's enough people interested in this type of thing. Like, what I'm saying is, the seekers of this type of phenomenon are people that have never experienced this type of phenomenon. Because like you're saying, the last thing, all you want to do is sell that ranch and never think about this again or talk about it again or never see another alien again or never see the sky open up and the stairway to heaven and all these ships, piling up on your property. I mean, it's a good thing they're not hungry, I guess, man. You end up as a piece of chicken.
Well, I don't know about that, but
well,
they'd have to fight awful hard to make that happen.
I know. Well, like Bruce was saying earlier, I mean, you take the protection of your family seriously, and I'm sure you're out there and you have plenty of ammunition. So I'm
it's
sure
not even that, man. I grew up in Chicago and I grew up hard. And it's like, you know what? I'm not going to let any of these little MFs run me off.
Now, I'm trying to think of the name of the what was the name of the guy's story who's gone now? And it happened in New Mexico, and they busted into something underground tunnel and it smelled like shit. And
right, yeah.
I forget the guy's name. He's dead now.
To an end, yeah, just recently. Well, not that long, about 10 years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah, some of the experiences that he had with these beings.
Deep underground military
Well,
bases.
And see, you know, you said something about us being connected to the other ranches underground.
Yeah.
The Australia Mountains are absolutely full of tunnels and full of caves, and I'm almost 100% sure that it's full of grays.
Well, see,
I think that's how they access, a lot of times how they access the ranch is it's completely underground. I think we are sitting on an ocean of water. I shouldn't say an ocean, a big pool of water. And I think that water is directly related to why the Greys are here, because they have complete access underground. And I think the water probably has created a honeycomb of lots of tunnels all over this entire area.
Let me ask you this question now, because for me, I've always, when I've seen these Greys or these big-headed, black-eyed alien pictures, I'm personally, for me, I don't know where they come from, but if I was to look at that, to me, that looks like something that lives underground. To me,
like something Aleister Crowley's playing with.
And it just looks to me like those kind of eyes are the kind of eyes that there's no pupil. There's just this black eye that would be the same kind of eye that maybe you would have in a place where you're consistently in the dark. What makes these? How do we know that these aliens or these Greys or these people in these ships are coming from other planets, galaxies, and places off far away? Is there direct knowledge that you've been to these aliens have given you to know that they're coming from someplace else? How do we know that they're not just coming from inside the Earth?
Well, you're right in both aspects, and I can tell you that up until about 2012. There were a tremendous amount of Greys on this planet. They weren't just here at the ranch or in Rainbow Valley. They were spread out all over the planet. There was some kind of an arrangement created between that race and several other races. And basically the Greys were told to get the hell off the planet. And so the only thing that's left at this point are renegade groups of Greys that never left, that decided that they were going to stay no matter what it cost them. And they're very violent. Not all the Greys are particularly violent. I mean, a lot of them kind of just do their own thing wherever that is. But the ones that are here, the ones that come to the ranch, are totally bad news. And, it was never my intention, to get in a firefight with these things originally. If they hadn't, invaded the property, invaded the house, hurt the animals, hurt my wife, I would have been like, live and let live. But, they screwed up and, there was no coming back from it.
It's Aftermath.fm. Tune in, turn on, and find out. And right now we're turning on, and finding out about John Edmonds Stardust Ranch. Bruce McDonald's here. Bruce, please come into the conversation now and drop the hammer for a bit, because I know you know some specific questions to ask at the audience. Because listen, what happens is there's a lot of parts of this story that people want to focus on, and those are the emotional parts. And really, when we're having a guest on, and John's here for the first time, I don't necessarily want to drag him through a bunch of emotional recounts of some of these horrible things that have happened. But honestly, I mean, everyone's sitting here wondering and wanting to know some of the really more intense material that John, has revealed as a result of writing the book with you. Can you please jump in here and help me out and sort of sift out some of these more intense experiences that people are all hanging on the edge of their seats on? I mean, they're waiting for it. So, I mean, go ahead.
So I'll go back to a question that was asked earlier about religious people going to the ranch. The Mormon bishop for that area went out with 2 acolytes, convinced he could exorcise the house. and they left pretty much, wetting their pants and screaming and squealing off in their car like it was a bank robbery.
Yeah,
And
scared to death. Scared to death.
you could, all the details of what happened when they started praying are in the book.
So they got an ego check.
Yeah, so and I think this is one of the types of experiences that would, I think a lot of the reason that, John said earlier, locals keep away from him and are a little bit afraid of him and his wife, it's because a lot of people equate the ET phenomenon with demonology. If you are heavily invested in a religious doctrine, you're going to see it that way. And I'm not saying demons don't exist. I have a spiritual life too. They do exist, but these are not demons. But they sure did a number on that Mormon bishop, and it was horrifying. I do have one little topic I'd like to talk about. May I?
Please do.
Okay. One of the things, because I'm a very rational person, you got my bio at the beginning of the show. I have a journalism degree. And so one of the questions I kept asking myself, and it found its way into the book in a very unique chapter called The Fourth Wall. Why is this not taken seriously? Like, by my objective, empirical analysis and experience with John writing this book, my experience on this mountain, and others I haven't spoken about in this interview, this is 100% verifiable object phenomenon that's happening. Why don't we have anybody in academe talking about this? Well, I'll give you the skinny on that because we wrote about it in the book. So one of the big voices who came into this area in the late 90s, early 2000s, was the head of the Harvard Psychiatry Department, a fellow by the name of John Mack. And he wrote about this phenomenon in a sympathetic way. Now, he didn't come right out and say, okay, I agree with alien abductions, but this phenomenon reminds me very much of pre-industrial revolution religious experiences and visions. And he wrote very compellingly about it, and he interviewed dozens and dozens and dozens of people who had these abduction stories. And one of the curious things about these stories is they're remarkably similar. No matter what part of the world, there's no way this could be made up, right? When you sit down and you interview 100 subjects over 2 or 3 years, another professor, a history professor named David Jacobs, older man now, I think he's 78, has written extensively about this. You get pretty much laughed out of academe. Harvard was furious. John Mack is the only tenured professor in the history of Harvard to have his work scrutinized by a special review committee that was set up. They wanted to shut him down. Now, John Mack was hit by a drunk driver while giving a talk in London, England, on this very subject, I believe in 2004 or 2005. The driver went right up on the sidewalk to kill him. And I think he was murdered.
Well,
but then they... Go ahead.
I want to say, Bruce, what I'm hearing, and when I'm listening to everything tonight, and what I'm hearing this. There's a blackout about this ranch for some reason. For some reason, there's something about this particular thing that's going on over here that people want to hide or not get involved with or not even talk about. I don't understand. This, your book's been out for a while. I don't understand why the alternative media hasn't had you guys on to talk about this stuff, because man, listen.
We did do a lot. We have done a lot of podcasts on this book, probably a couple dozen, right, John? And radio interviews.
Yeah, it's the problem is this, and that is that the story is not clean. Okay, it's not a simple connect the dots and start here and end there. It's just messy as hell. And because it's ongoing, and because we have proof, and because of the fact that so many other people have experienced this here, what it basically does is it kind of says Stardust Ranch is say on the right, and all of the paranormal, everything paranormal is on the left. Uh-huh. We don't fit in. We are in one story. We encapsulate all the rest of it. And, there hasn't been anything historically, validated in years and years and years. This is the only active, ongoing story with the original people involved.
And the other thing is you have what everybody else is screaming and crying for is documentation, which you have. So
Yeah,
the thing
exactly.
is like that. Maybe that's the thing, is that your story is actually provable. They don't want that to be, get out there for some reason, Bruce. I mean, I'm not sure what's going on with this.
Absolutely. After Mac was murdered, I'll strongly say that. That's only my opinion. But after he was murdered, Harvard promoted this graduate student named Susan Clancy to counter his work. And she wrote a book called Abducted, How People Come to Believe They Were Kidnapped by Aliens, and postulated that it was early childhood sexual abuse mutating into this alien abduction scenario in the adult, which, as I've already mentioned, is completely consistent. The narratives in Australia, in Canada, in the United States, they're 100% consistent. Exactly what Whitley Strieber described in his books as well. So there absolutely is an institutional whitewash of this material. On the one hand, we're allowed to play with this topic in a kind of game show way, like Skinwalker Ranch on the History Channel is game showing this topic. It's not serious. And I'll say this, folks. Stardust Ranch is a serious book. It's a philosophical meditation on this phenomenon alongside the documentation of everything that's happened to John and Joyce. And it also explores these topics of the First of all, the exopolitics world is completely and utterly controlled. They have Air Force intelligence at contact in the desert. There's Air Force intelligence people there. Okay,
Exactly.
There are things,
I can testify to that one, Bruce.
Yeah. So there are things, and John doesn't play games. John is a very straightforward and super tough guy. It's like E.T. meets the Hells Angels. And they don't like it. They don't like the way he talks about these things, and he's been very marginalized in this community. And what he said, everybody's been out there to test this. The CIA's been out there. Bigelow Aerospace has been out there. Going back to an early part of the interview where John said their equipment failed coming over the bridge, to a line of 4 black SUVs all conked out at the same time. They had to get tow trucks, take them back to Las Vegas, and come back the following week. Okay?
Well, it's a connection here. There's a good connection here, because we're talking about Bigelow, who runs his stuff out of Nevada, where Harry Reid hit him up to start running part of the program for ATIP, right? The UFO, they call them unidentified aerial phenomena now, right? The task force with Louis Elizondo, who's working for the CIA at the time. It was run by the Defense Intelligence Agency. So Bigelow's job with that was to actually, supposedly, according to him, was to get physical evidence, and he claims he has physical evidence. So it makes me wonder if the whole reason for the play towards the wrench, for Stardust Wrench, was to get this physical evidence. Like, he had whatever he already had, maybe wasn't getting any more. He just wanted the wrench to get, to build on that. And that would have been probably 2017-ish would be the last time he'd be around if that was the case. But I started 2007 through 2012, right? So I mean, he has a space program like SpaceX, but what he's actually doing is it's kind of a ruse. It's just these inflatable shelters you put out in space. That's bogus, man.
Yeah, it's never gonna happen.
This is what he's after.
So remember at the beginning of the interview, I said I would circle back to why I quit in 2012.
Yes.
This is a perfect time. While John and I were working on the book, I was set up to do an interview with Dr. Levengood, and it was right around this time him and his wife get taken out. I said, I've had enough. I got a son to raise. I'm out of here.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
I've been shot at. I've had all sorts of things. I've been every type of intimidation you can imagine has been, at one time or another used on us. And, the bottom line is I had to I'll draw a line in the sand and just say, if I was going to keep this place and deal with this, as far as the whole, whatever came, I was going to deal with it. I had to accept the fact that I might not live through it. And I said to myself, you know what, this is going to follow me no matter what I do for the rest of my life. I'm going to just be a hard ass son of a bitch, and I'm going to take it on head first and deal with whatever comes. And I can tell you straight up, when I go to conferences, and I don't go to very many, but when I go to a conference, wherever I go, everything stops the people get 10 deep around me, and all they want me to do is talk about the different stories and answer their questions. There is tremendous, just grassroots interest in all of this, not because of the fact that, me or anything else. It's because I'm willing to speak truthfully and give people real answers. You go to these conferences and these things are all polished and presented. Mm-hmm. It's the same old crap year after year after year. People pay $300 to $600 to hear the same old stories.
That's right.
I sit there with people and I answer their questions, good, bad, and different. If somebody gets insulting, I ask them to, take a walk.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that, unfortunately, we have a lot of answers. We have many more questions than we do answers, but we're willing to treat people like people. Okay. We're nothing special. We're not celebrities. We're not out there trying to be, anything shiny. All we're trying to do is have a life, do the best we can for our animals, and just try to answer. And we're trying to get the same answers everybody else is.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is we're one of the people. We're not up on a platform somewhere.
No.
We're nothing special. We're just trying to be real.
We're on this platform, Aftermath.fm. It's Into the Microcosm. That's John Edmonds, and that's Bruce McDonald. It's Stardust Ranch. This one's for you, John.
When he's around, anything can happen, and usually does.
Would be nice.
Help this gentleman to the door.
Until it's time to not be nice.
So says the fighting philosopher.
My name is Jimmy. It's Into the Microcosm. Say it's your granddaddy's late night.
citizen, you are entitled to a heated, kidney-shaped pool, a microwave oven. Don't watch the food cook. A Dynagym. I'll personally demonstrate it in the privacy of your own home. A king-size Titanic polybender, a foolproof plan, and an airtight alibi. Simulated Indian jewelry, a Gucci shoe tree, a year's supply of antibiotics. Dylan's new unlisted phone number. Like Swizzle Stick, Rosemary's Baby, a dream date in knee pads with Paul Williams. A new Matador, a new Mastodon, a
Mustang, a Montego, a Merc Montclair, a Meteor, a Mercedes, an MG, or a Mort Moriarty, a Maserati, a Mack truck, a new Monza, or a moped, a Winnebago. Hell, I've heard of Winnebagos. We're giving them away. A Las Vegas wedding, a Mexican, a gold Kama Sutra coffee pot, or a baby's arm holding an apple.
My name's Jimmy. It's Aftermath FM, late night style. Give us a call, 626-999-4761, 626-999-4761. This one's for Bruce McDonald sitting over there in the Talamanca Mountains, Costa Rica. Stop. Me llamo Jimmy. That's right. It's Aftermath.fm. We're sitting here. We only got 20 some odd minutes left. And we're sitting here with John Edmonds, the owner of Stardust Ranch and the co-author of Stardust Ranch with Bruce McDonald. They're both here tonight, shaking it up, man. You know, we're rocking the boat every night, Monday through Friday, right here on Aftermath FM. We're rocking the boat, but tonight we're rocking the MF house, man. Carlito. Orale, Holmes. That's right. Danny, are you over there still in the chat room? Is there still people?
I don't know if it's frozen, but it's not moving. But there's still lots of people.
People are
It
everywhere.
might be my computer. My computer is being really, really naughty.
It could be. Naughty computers deserve spankings.
Ruh-roh.
Un spanking. Come here for un
You have been
spankings.
bad.
Into the microcosm. We're spanking the alternative media right now because they let John and Bruce sit over there unattended, and look at what they've missed. And I'm glad you guys are here. Thank you so much for sharing tonight, you guys. I really appreciate you guys being here, man.
No problem.
Jimmy, can you get Who's Your Daddy's details, his email and stuff off air?
Yeah,
and,
I have his details. I have his details.
Yeah,
He won a hat.
Because he's a truck driver, we're just finishing up the audio book. It should be ready in another 3 weeks or so, and I'll send that to him, and he can listen to it while he's driving. Read in a beautiful Australian baritone by a gentleman named Monty Dean.
Yeah, and people can find Monty here with us on Friday nights because he's going to be joining us on a regular basis. So he was with us last Friday night, hanging out. He's coming back this Friday, so you'll actually hear the voice of the book, ladies and gentlemen. And so yeah, that is fantastic and very beautiful gesture of you're making there, Bruce, because we love the truck drivers, man. And you know,
he just has to promise that he doesn't pass it on to anybody, because I'll be giving it to him without any digital signature software that is incorporated into an Amazon purchase. So he could literally go out and give it to, he could start selling it actually. So he has to give me his word that he's not going to do that. Give me his email and I'll communicate with him. But he asked great questions, and deserves a book, and
10-4.
I'd love to get. We'll use him as our quality assurance test for the audiobook.
Excellent. Now, listen, we don't have much time left, so before we go, John, I want Bruce to talk a little bit about what he's working on now and what's about to be released. Bruce, if you wouldn't mind sharing, I mean, because this hasn't really been talked about that much really out in the open, so. But it's getting ready to happen, like almost immediately, if not sooner. And so would you mind sharing a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on with you and your new book that's coming out here recently? It's about to come out. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a book coming out. I think the tentative release date is June 15th. The copy editing is done. It's just going into post-production now. It is titled The Galactic Historian, The World According to Andrew Bartzis. And if you don't know who Andrew is, it's pretty easy to figure out. He has a YouTube channel, and he's a rather remarkable individual, a healer, and an unparalleled gift at reading the Akashic records. If we were to look at this sort of thing within the framework of our education system, Nostradamus would be grade 6, and Andrew is a PhD. And I'm not joking or being hyperbolic. And John's met him as well, so he can double down on that. And this is a fantastic story about the 55 million year history of Earth and what's really gone on down here. And I'm sad to say,
could you spell his last name?
Bartzis, Bartzis. It's Greek. And I have to. You're quite welcome, Danny. I have to tell you that it completely corroborates what John Edmonds said an hour ago about this being some form of farm. Okay, and basically, you're either going to love this book or you're gonna throw it against the wall and go crazy because it tips over every sacred cow that's out there.
Well, now, just like just like the show here and shows that you're on, frequently. There's a really great audience, a really smart audience. A lot of times, people gravitate towards certain information. And you were telling me earlier before the show that somebody that was familiar with Bartz's work. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we did a sample reading of about 30 people. John Edmonds has read this manuscript, gave absolutely brilliant feedback. There's another gentleman, very advanced in at least a master level, at least a half dozen mystery schools, Rosicrucians, Freemasonry, all of them. And he's an extremely, I think he's got 4 or 5 PhDs, but he read it and he said with minimal work, like 5% more work, some footnotes and references in a reference chapter and an introduction, it can be submitted to the Berkeley Theology Department for PhD consideration in comparative religion.
Wow.
Yeah, I could be Dr. Bruce next year.
Wow, man, let me just say, the minute...
God help us.
Oh, wow. I mean, it just doesn't...
Is there a doctor in the house? Yes. What seems to be the problem?
Hey, it hurts when I go like this.
God, well, then don't go like that.
Exactly. Boom.
So each of these books is an initiatic experience. The Bruce that exits the book is not the same Bruce that entered the book. Stardust Ranch utterly transformed me. Andrew Bartzis' book utterly transformed me. And this is why I love doing these co-writes with fascinating people, giving true firsthand accounts of the psycho-spiritual reality we live in, rather than the bullshit dogma the human race has been fed like cattle feed for centuries and millennia.
Well, we've been joined by a caller. Caller, who are you? Where are you calling from? And what's your information or question for the panel?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Alex.
Hey, Alex. So, buonasera. Bello.
Buonasera. Buongiorno, qui.
Buongiorno. Come on.
I have a question for John.
Go ahead.
So, I heard him talk earlier about people who thought they were abducted, but they actually had childhood abuse.
Okay.
And I wanted to know if you heard about Dr. Carla Turner.
Yes. Actually, Carla was actually a friend of some different individuals I know, so I know a little bit about her. What can I help you with?
Yeah, just she had the book in the early 90s about that, called Masquerades of Angels.
Okay.
She used to talk about this stuff.
So,
that's something that Alex, are you talking about where they were saying that people who had been saying they were abducted were actually probably just survivors of abuse, and that's how they were trying to discredit it? It seemed it's like just 2 days ago I was reading about that for quite a while, and it's it's an opinion of people who would talk about abductions as having been actual abductions, that it's like a way to discredit those people saying they were just fed the information or in it. I think is that what you mean? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Yes.
So Alex is calling in from Italy. John, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as a psychiatric social worker, I've had a lot of experience, studying the text, various different things, and working in the subject. And an awful lot of experiences get explained away because of the fact that there's no way for the professional community to be able to attach anything relevant to the information, because there's just no wealth of information about abduction. There's nothing out there, in terms of textbooks or any kind of, anything within the university system to be able to talk about this stuff and analyze it. So what they do is they try to find something that they can kind of Velcro to it and stick to it to explain it away. Well, sexual abuse is one of those things that's, really only come out in about the last, 25 to 30 years as part of the psychiatric professional community is in terms of really digging into it. And so it's just a natural place for them to be able to attach it.
Great.
Thank you for the answer.
Great question.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, great question.
Bye.
Great
Thanks,
question, Alex. Thank you, man. Go ahead.
Bye.
Go ahead.
There was a Stanford study that they did where they were able to mimic an alien abduction with electronic signals, where they had the person in the chair. I think in this case they used electrodes, and they saw like a plastic person. They described it specifically as like a shiny plastic person. And what happened was they sensed a presence in the room, and then as it went on longer, they're in a dark room when this happens, and they actually see this image, this humanoid image, and it's described very much like a typical gray, except that it was more. It seems like it was lighter colored, shiny, like I said, and it was multiple people they were able to do that with. So it really shows that it's why would if you could do that with signal, right? Maybe you're actually opening up that dimension, right? We're talking about how the signal on the wrench there, for example, might be bringing these things in this nexus point, but maybe just by giving the right signal to the mind, it's not just a psychology. There actually are entities starting to, because it's a shared entity. It's almost like the Clockwork Elves from Terrence McKenna, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not just Terrence McKenna, DMT experiencers in general. But
we got another call coming in. Go ahead, Bruce.
I'm good. Sorry.
All right. Yeah. Hey, caller. Good to have you. Looks like you're calling. What's your name? Where you calling from? And what's your question for John or Bruce?
Yeah, my name's Eric, and I live in San Antonio, Texas.
Hey, Eric. What's up, man? Thanks for calling, bro.
Hey, I had two quick things. I'll make it quick. I also heard that alien abduction, the experience is like when people are in deep sleep or like, and it's like they're remembering their birth, and the doctors seem like aliens because there's a lot of bright lights and instruments and stuff, and it's just kind of them remembering being born. And I thought that was pretty interesting when I heard that.
Yeah, that is interesting.
What do y'all think?
Yeah, what do you guys think about that?
Well, it doesn't explain the marks on people's bodies. It doesn't explain the radiation exposure like John's wife is dying from. I mean, look, academe could wrap this up and make it a public topic in a semester if the CIA would let them at the Ivy League level. It's just not being allowed right now for whatever reasons of national security is the best. They're deliberately blocking it.
See, part of the answer, I think, to this whole thing is this: and that is the government has been involved with so much of this for so long and studying this, not just our government, but governments around the world. They have, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pages of research, with people that they've worked with from, the 1940s all the way up. And, none of that's being released. The government's not being straight with us is the bottom line, and until they get to the point where they say, okay, look, we're going to disclose, but we're not going to just, give you a bunch of crap to keep you busy. We're going to actually give you some real truth and our summation of what we really think this whole subject's about. When they get to the point where they're ready to, to level with us and tell us the truth and let us work directly with our own analysis of the information, that's when we're all going to be sitting at the same table talking about the same subject. Until that happens, it's going to be nothing but a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, do you think having such a sparse population in the Southwest it's a weakness to have that happen? Because it just seems like that's like the hot spot, the Southwest area of the United States. And it's, from Marfa, Texas onward west, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah.
There's a lot of reasons for that. The Greys hate cold. Okay, so they're going to always be, you're always pretty much going to find the Greys wherever it's hot. Any of these, anything that is even close to a reptilian type of creature, it's always going to be where the heat is.
All right.
Interesting. Cool. Hey, thanks for calling, Eric. Really appreciate it. Did you have any other follow-up questions before you exit stage left?
No, that's good, man. Awesome listening to y'all.
Right
Keep
on.
up the work, man.
Hey,
thanks for calling.
We will. Hey, man. So you're in San Antonio. How's things going out? Yeah. How's things going out there, man? Is everybody taking the mask off out there, and just what's going on out there? With
it's a mix, man. You walk in the grocery store and half the people, well, not half, probably less than half, but I'm one of the ones that don't. But then again, I go to the store late, so there's less people,
Yeah, that's me too. You got to find the ones that don't throw a fit when you walk in.
Yeah.
I have people looking at me with like they look at me like I'm brave, like older ladies. They're like, hi, and I'm like, hi. I don't even.
Aww. That's so sweet.
That is sweet. That's nice.
Yeah.
Hey, Brett.
I've had this experience with this same person 2 times in the same store. And it's Walmart. I freaking hate Walmart. And it's this guy, and it's kind of like when our mask mandate started. I walk in there and I'm like, okay, I know I'm like giving myself this pep talk. You're the only person that's not going to be wearing a mask. You can do this,
Yeah.
And so I walk over to the produce, and this dude, it's like this epic looking guy with like dreads to his butt, and he's not wearing them. And I'm like, it's really nice to see a face. And he's like, yes. Like total fist bump moment.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I'm never going to Walmart again. I'm so disgusted. And so I go back a few months later, same thing, same guy. It's like, what? What? Are you serious? It was so good.
Oh.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But it feels good, man. There's some freedom to it, but it's so weird seeing people smile. Like why is that weird? That should never.
We've all been conditioned. The first 90 days was the conditioning phase. And I mean, it's getting to the point now where, what the thing is, what's really interesting to me with the last moments of this show, I'm going to say this again. So all the way up until this point, wearing masks, we were against it. Okay? But this is the exact moment where you might want to rethink some of that, because the people that got the vaccination are taking their masks off, and all of a sudden they're just walking around breathing on everybody. And this may be a strain or something that, you might want to, just take that extra precaution. I don't know, man. What I'm doing is I buy these mechanics gloves at the auto parts store, the black ones. And when I go to the store, dude, I just put them black gloves on, man, and I just buy my shit. When I leave, I throw it away in the garbage can. Listen, I'm also going to give you guys something right now. Somebody wants to make a shitload of money. I'm going to give you a business idea right now. Go out there, go around and sell a business where you put these red trash cans out in front of grocery stores, because people are throwing that shit in the street. So you go out and say, hey, who's taking care of all this biological waste you got laying around in the street out here? I mean, this is infected material. You realize that, right? So why don't you get some red trash cans, you get yourself a flatbed, put them out in front of the grocery stores, and charge them grocery stores X amount of dollars per month to pick that shit up. And all you do is just drive up and pick it up and leave. My name's Jimmy. It's in the MicroCosmos Aftermath.fm. We're sitting here with John Edmonds, Bruce McDonald, Eric from San Antonio, Texas, Epic Journeyman, myself. Jesus, man. I mean,
Good
you know,
stuff.
all we need is a keg, man, and we got a party going on. And it's almost it's almost time for us to leave. So, Eric, thank you. And Danny, everybody, I'm going to take a quick break here for a second. We'll listen to a little of this. And we got about 3 minutes left. I'll be right back. You can find this book on Amazon, ladies and gentlemen. The alternative media has virtually ignored the book. I don't understand why. There's giant shows with giant bases of listeners that could be passing this information on. If you're really interested in disclosure, man, disclose this. Okay? UFO, love to love. My name's Jimmy. It's Aftermath.fm. It's a place to be. Running out of time. Everybody, let's say goodbye. All right? We're going to go out with UFO, love and love. Goodbye. We'll see you guys tomorrow night right here, Wednesday night. Steve from Slow News Day. Go ahead and say goodbye, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, John. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Aftermath. There we go. It's quiet. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Into the microcosm. Mom's Jimmy. Goodbye. We're gonna go from Epic Journeyman, the lovely mistress, for the door that leads below. Fantastically unusual. Danny, Bruce McDonald, John Edmonds, Stardust Ranch. We'll see you tomorrow night. You know where the after party's at. Into the Microcosm, Jimmy G and Strike Zone, YouTube. We'll see you tomorrow night.